Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's #1 industrial automation product and technology show. Thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Thank you for being a member of our audience, and thank you for tuning back in this week. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, my name is Shawn of Insights in Automation, and each week I invite a new vendor on the show to tell us about their products and technologies. And during the presentation, I play the role of the audience, asking questions I think you might have and questions I have as well. Now, given that over a quarter of you out there are listening and not watching, I'll also try to call attention to any visuals or details in the slide presentation that I think the listen-only audience may want to know about. With that said, this week I am excited to have Johann on to talk to us about FactoryTalk View 14. But Johann, before you get started with your presentation, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Shawn. Thank you for having me here. So just a little bit of a background. I actually was born and raised in South Africa, and I started my career with Rockwell Automation in South Africa as a system solution business project engineer. I got the opportunity to come over to the United States in 2016, where I actually joined the Plant PX team responsible for the library of process objects. And then over the last year, I had the opportunity to join the visualization group within Rockwell Automation as the product manager for FactoryTalk View, SE, ME, Viewpoint, and Alarm Events.
We're glad to have you on. Those folks who've been following me know that starting back in '99, I was been posting sample code online on my own website for RS332, which is the predecessor of FactoryTalk View SE. And so I'm excited to learn what's latest and greatest in 14. So let me turn it back to you and let us know.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'll start the presentation here. I'm really excited here to talk to you about FactoryTalk View version 14. For those that are not aware, this was released last year, November 2023. And I'm just going to move on here to the next slide.
But before we jump in, I want to thank theautomationschool.com for sponsoring this episode of the show. That's where you'll find all of my online courses on Allen Bradley and Siemens, PLCs, and HMIs. So if you know anybody who needs to get up to speed on those products, please mention theautomationschool.com to them. And now let's jump back into the show.
And as you can see here from the slide, for the listeners, we've got a very feature-rich release for version 14. We think this is probably one of the biggest releases that we've done in the past couple of years, and we are very excited to talk about the features that we have on the slide here. So for the listening audience, I'm not going to run through the summary here, but we'll go through each one of these in detail during the presentation and looking forward for some questions. All right, we've got a couple of themes here. So the slides that are going to follow are all about runtime modernization. This is one of the bigger features that we've implemented, and this is really targeted to those high resolution screens like 2K, 4K, and 8K monitors that people are starting to use on their sites. People has said in the past, well, things don't necessarily scale correctly, or some of the displays, maybe things like pop-ups and faceplates, are extremely small. So they want the ability to be able to scale the content. So what we've done here is we have made some configurations using Windows DPI configurations to be able to scale the content correctly. So if you are going to use other versions of View SE before version 14, if you go set your Windows DPI settings, like let's say to 175%, all the Windows components will scale, things like the title bars, but the content within the display or the faceplate will not. But now in version 14, if you go change those DPI settings to 175, what you'll notice is it won't just scale the Windows components like the title bar, but actually will scale the components inside the display as well, which helps with that support on higher resolution monitors. Right, moving on to the next one here is runtime scale quality improvement. So what we've done here is we've actually changed our rendering engine in the background. and now I'm going to talk about the pictures here. But if you look to the pictures to the right, something that you will notice in previous versions of View is that if you look at the lines, it's a little bit jagged. It's not sharp. It's not clear and crisp. So with a new rendering engine, if you look at the graphics at the bottom, those lines look a lot smoother, crisper, and gives you a more modern feel to the product at the end of the day. So we've really improved the rendering of objects within our View platform. Right. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is improved multi-touch interaction. So we've tried for our touchscreen devices to improve the interaction. So the use of multi-touch gestures in SE displays have been enhanced, specifically targeted at Trend Pro and XY Plot. So if we go look at zoom in and zoom out, that functionality was really improved in Trend Pro and XY Plot. The same with panning capabilities. And then if we move on to things like a data grid or an alarm events log viewer, that scrolling capability has been enhanced and should be a lot smoother at the end of the day. Next feature I want to talk about is probably one of the bigger features that we've implemented and hopefully make the engineering effort a lot easier going forward. The feature is runtime navigation. So today in version 14, if you open up View Studio, there will be a new configuration property, which we call a navigation menu. What this allows you to do is go build out a display navigation hierarchy quickly and easily. So there's two ways that you can do this. You can either go to your displays and create folders, hierarchy, and then drag your graphics into those folders. And then when you go to the navigation menu, you can just go add those folders and it will automatically build that navigation menu out for you. No button configurations anymore, trying to lay things out. It's just natively done in the product for you. Then the other way to do this is if you don't want to use display folders, you can just go build it out by creating your own folders and dragging your graphics onto those folders. And then that navigation menu is built out for you. One of the biggest features here is you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of customization.
But before we get into that, I wanted to thank those of you who signed up in our new membership program, either on YouTube or at theautomationblog.com. In appreciation of your support, you get exclusive access to the videos of episodes that are not sponsored by the vendor. Now, to learn more about our membership program, which is only $10 a month, please visit theautomationblog.com/memberships. And with that, let's go ahead and jump back into this week's episode.
You can decide to add the history, the go back and forward buttons to the navigation menu, and you can also change the coloring on and the HMI text sizes on the navigation. We support 3 types of configurations as well. You can decide just to use an icon for the navigation, or you can combine an icon and text, or you can just use text alone for the navigation.
Now, I want to ask you something. Go ahead.
Sure.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, so this looks like, so typically we would create our own menu bar and we would dock it to the top. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of work in that, right? And
Correct.
A lot of work maintaining it as things change over time. So I see that this would be easier, right? A lot easier and quicker. But I also suspect we can do things with this that I couldn't do if I just created my own menu bar. Is there a I'm just looking at it, and some of the things I'm like, oh, how would I program that? Can you talk to that a little bit? I mean, what does it do? I mean, just creating a screen that's really wide and narrow and putting a bunch of buttons on it or images on it, that's not that hard, right? Maintaining it can be difficult, but that's not that hard. But it looks like you're doing some different things automatically. Is there anything in here that may be really difficult to do, just making your own screen?
it's not going to be extremely difficult. Well, okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the other content here, and then I'll get back to your question.
Yeah, please.
Because one of the things that might be difficult to do on your own is the alarm notification and automatic diagnostics that we are actually automatically making part of this. So what you'll notice here is we can actually create breadcrumbs on a navigation menu. So if I've got a couple of displays under, let's say, that mixer tab, it will actually show me what's the highest priority alarm currently active under that hierarchy, right?
Okay.
So I can easily trace where the alarm is. I can go click on mixer. I'll see the screen where the other alarm is, and I can go. So that type of breadcrumbing might be extremely difficult. Well, not extremely difficult, but more difficult to do on your own application if you're going to generate it by your own. This is built-in free. You just subscribe to that alarm or notification, and it's just done for you. Yeah, there's not a lot of engineering involved with it.
So nice.
So the nice thing, again, like I said, you get those two little bubbles, and you can easily trace where the issue is or the alarm is, and you can navigate to it and make sure you address that problem as quickly as possible. So that's one of the biggest things I would say would be more engineering intensive to do on your own.
Yeah.
And then the last one I want to talk about is the runtime search capability. And this partly is part of your question as well. We don't currently have a runtime search capability built into View. And there are ways and methods to do it, but there's engineering involved by doing this. Now, using the new runtime navigation menu, which we'll talk about in the next slide, is the runtime search capability, being able to search for content within your screens and navigating to it. The last point I just want to make here with the runtime navigation menu as well is if you go and decide to go to rename a display within your display folder, you don't have to go back to the navigation menu and go rename it there. It will automatically detect the rename, and you don't have to go back and do engineering that as well. So the real benefit here is that sort of drag and drop functionality, and it's just done for you. You can do this within a couple of minutes, and you have your hierarchy set up where if you have to go do this design by yourself and build it out, that might take a long time for you to do it. So it's just really around reducing engineering effort and making a built-in feature that people can use.
And I think everybody knows that if you have a display command on a button somewhere, if you rename that screen, you're going to go find that button and rename it.
Correct. So hopefully I addressed some of your questions there.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so like I said, the next line is all about the runtime and navigation integrated runtime search. So I just want to make it clear to the audience that this feature, you have to use it with the runtime navigation menu. If you don't, then you don't have this capability. Okay. But the nice thing about the runtime search here is you can now, for this release, either search on a tag or a navigation menu display name. So if you decide to search on the tag, you can just go type in there on the magnifying glass, let's say for this instance, mixer. It will then go through the system or everything in the navigation menu cross-reference where that tag is being used. Find it for you. You will double-click on that display, navigate to the display automatically, and then highlight where that tag is actually being used on the display. If you don't want to do that, you can, and you know only the display name, you can switch it over to display name. And again, I'm going to use the example of mixer. All my display names that contains the word mixer will be cross-referenced and displayed under my search. I double-click it and will navigate to it. Now, some of the audience say, well, we use parameterization. You don't have to worry about that. It automatically resolves the parameter tags. So it will find those references for you, and you'll be able to navigate to it.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I like in my course, I do a lot of parameterization, but I'll have to try it. That's awesome.
Right. The next one is, I'm not sure how many of the audience here actually do language translations or multiple languages. But this is a feature that we've enhanced for our pop-ups that are native or a part of the product itself.
Yep.
So, things like logins and e-signatures and other context menus, people want that translated to a different language as well. So now what we've done is the same way that you do your English translations on displays by exporting that language file to your computer. If you open up that file, it now gives you a new category, which is basically dialog boxes. Then you can go create your translations in there, import it back into the project, and then now those dialog boxes will automatically be translated for you for the language that you want to support at the end of the day. As you can see here, we've got the electronic signature and we've translated it to Chinese.
That's excellent.
This one is specific to multi-monitor displays, docking and sizing. Those who are familiar with our multi-monitor functionality within View, you know that you can't dock displays in those versions. So we try to address that. And so this feature allows you to dock it. And in the previous release, if you did dock it, it would go span across multiple screens. It would not just span across that specific screen. So the constraint in the previous releases was really you had to go design your content to a very specific size and resolution, right? And you couldn't really use your scaling capabilities. Now in this release, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You can dock it to a specific screen. You can do scaling. You don't have to go design to fix resolutions. So the whole multi-monitor experience have been improved at the end of the day.
I think this is important. Like let's say you have in the example, we have 4, let's say they're 1080p displays that make up the client, right? Well, if one of those fails and you buy a new one, it may be 4K, right? We see it a lot with TVs. A lot of TVs is just 4K, right? So this is huge because if you replace that monitor and it goes to 4K, you'll still be docked on, let's say, monitor 2. It's just going to go full screen on monitor 2, regardless of the resolution. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct, yes.
That's that auto fit feature. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's an auto fit feature. Correct. Again, we made it flexible. So if you do create your AC client wizard, if you like the old way of doing things, you can decide to keep it that way. But if you want the new capability, you can enable it. So you have that flexibility going back for backwards compatibility.
That's good. Yeah.
All right, let's talk a bit on a theme of connectivity and presentation.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to jump in here and pay some bills. Thank you, first of all, for listening to this episode. And while today's vendor wasn't able to sponsor this episode, I still wanted to invest the time to bring it to you because I think you're like me. You like to learn about new products and technologies. So with all that said, I'd like to ask you to consider becoming a member for just $10 a month, either on YouTube or at theautomationblog.com. to help me offset the cost of producing these episodes each week. In exchange for your membership, you will receive member-only perks, including access to my daily news show and ad-free editions of every unsponsored episode of this show. With that said, thanks again for tuning in this week, and now we'll return you to this week's episode.
So if going back to FactoryTalk version 12, we introduced the feature called the data grid. And at that point in time, you could only display the content in that data grid that was part of SQL Server in a tabular form. Then version 13 came out, and then you could actually display your database for the data logs. And now we've expanded it to version 14. The new data source, you can access your FactoryTalk Historian database and display it in a user-friendly tabular format.
Now, when you say data logs, we talking the DAT files? Because typically when we would data log, because we're already going to have a Microsoft SQL Server Lite, a lot of times we would just data log right to Microsoft SQL Server, and that's why the data grid was good for that, right? But a lot of people just data log to the native DAT files, right? Is that what you meant in version 13 when you said data logs?
Well, I believe in 13 we support both, right? You can either log to a SQL database or the DAT, but it supports both.
Oh, perfect. And now 14, you get the FactoryTalk Historian, which I know a lot of people use, and that's really cool to be able to do that as well.
Correct. Right. Moving on to the next one. More features on Trend Pro and XY Plot. So a lot of people have come back to us and say they like the Trend Pro, but one of the concerns or issues that they have is they don't have a control of what buttons are displayed or what controls are displayed on the toolbar.
Yep.
So what we've now done is we've actually exposed these methods in VBA, and you can go have a choice to either disable something by, let's say, user role, and it will just gray out the button, or you can actually go hide the button in total. So you can decide and control exactly what you need to be active on your toolbar. And one of the other ones that also came in is on touchscreens, the size of the buttons are not necessarily suitable. They need different sizing. So we gave you 3 options now. You can decide, okay, I either want to have a small icon, medium size icon, or a large icon. So you can just change the icon sizes depending on your needs. So this is what this one is all about. So I always ask people about this feature, show annotations on Train Pro. How many people are actually familiar with the annotations? And I don't think a lot of, well, my feeling is people don't know about it or don't necessarily use it. So I'm going to explain a little bit what it is. So if you do use something like a FactoryTalk Historian, if you go and launch your system management tool and you go browse to all your raw data points for that specific tag, and there's something happening in the system that you aren't sure what happened, but you want to make a note that there was something happening in this point in the process. This is what the annotation feature is about. You go to that data point, you right click, say annotate, and you might have to say, well, my tank level overflowed due to flow meter or something like that. You can make a note for that. But you don't necessarily want an operator guy to go and mess in your historian. You don't want them to jump from their view client to a system management tool. So what we've now done is in Trend Pro, we gave you the capability of doing exactly that same feature. You open up your trend, you go to that raw data point, right click, say annotate. It will bring up that same interface that you get from the system management tool. You can make your note, save it, and what you'll see here on your trend is these little icons. And if you hover over it, there will be a tooltip and show exactly what that annotation or description that you entered at that point in time. So this helps operators, give them access to this feature and capability without having to leave different environments at the end of the day. Right, let's move over to the next theme, which is application design. And something has been requested quite often, so we've decided to introduce this as a new object within our product called a radar chart. So you have got a couple of capabilities in here. You have capability of making multiple series, create multiple categories, and then give your series a name. You can decide what type of line you want to have. Is it a dotted line, a straight line, just the style of the line? What do you want the data point to look like? Is it a star, a circle, or a rectangle? Do the line coloring. Do you want to fill in the spaces on the chart? So you've got a lot of flexibility on configuration that you can do at this point in time. The nice thing about this is as well, if you go enter static values in the tag, you can actually go hit the button and say preview my radar chart, and it will actually show you what that was going to look like with those values. And once you're happy with how you configured your radar chart, you can actually go say set this as a default. Nice thing about this is next time you instantiate your radar chart, it will take all those properties that you configured in the previous one. Obviously, you can make changes if you need to change coloring. But if you don't want to go through all that configuration, you can just set it as default. Next instance, you only have to fill in the raw data points or the live tags. Like I said, at the end of the day, you just go configure your live data tags, click OK, go to your view client, and you'll have a nice radar chart showing up. For those listeners out there that use Viewpoint, this is also supported within Viewpoint.
Now, do you know what people are using these for? I see these quite a bit, but I've almost exclusively used historical trends for process variables. Do you know what is this like quality control? Do you know what they're using this for? These radar shots?
It's quality control. And a lot of this is you might have multiple ovens that you want to monitor at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then how they typically use it is they'll create a series for the live data that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second series, they'll make static values, right? And then it's like, okay, these values, the live has to be within that control range, right? For your system to operate efficiently. So it's just an easy way to see if your system is actually reacting the way it should within the boundaries that's set forth with it. There are other applications, but this is one of the examples I can think of. Mm-hmm. Typically, things like I've done in mining. People measure pressure, temperature, and level on a thing, and it's sort of a quick and easy way for them to analyze what's currently happening within the system.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Right. Another one that I don't think a lot of listeners or users are aware of, but in version 12, we created a feature called .NET controls. So you can go build your own controls and then actually render them within View SE. We tried to make this a lot simpler for users to use. So we're now integrating with Apache eCharts. The nice thing, you can go to Apache eChart website, and they've got hundreds and thousands of these charts that you could potentially use with your HMI client or application. So I know people need to visualize this, but by default, if you go add a .NET control, you go select Apache eCharts. We give you 6 default ones that you can use. I believe one is a pie chart, one is a radar chart, donut chart, OEE calculations, and my memory is failing me. I can't remember what the other 2 is, but there's 6 by default, which you can use in examples how to configure other ones. But now you can say, well, I don't want any of those. You can go to the Apache eChart website, go get a control. You can go copy the code, come back to View, say you want to add a widget. You just paste that code. Make sure that you assign the values on that eChart just to a live data tag. And then you've built a widget, and you can use it across your application easily without actually having to go build it yourself. Last thing I just want to mention, the same thing like the radar chart. You can actually go put static values and go look at the preview of what that widget's going to look like, and then and just use it.
I'm looking at it. It looks beautiful. The widget editor looks beautiful. It's like I'm really dying to try this out.
So, one thing I'm going to there's some probably some people need to know JavaScript and JSON if they are going to do modifications. But again, you can modify this widget to your heart's content. So if you need more data points, more lines, you can add that by just modifying the code. All right. One thing I want to talk about is a new tag browser user interface. So View SE is now using the FactoryTalk service v14, which introduced a new tag browser.
Hey guys, Shawn jumping back in here to let you know about one of the new services I'm offering from my new downtown office. In addition to custom in-person training and virtual training, I'm also now offering one-on-one mentoring. This is a service that grew out of my online courses at theautomationschool.com, driven by students who completed my courses, were competent in their jobs, but then they'd run into difficult or confusing applications, and they wanted to hire me to sit with them virtually and review their projects, review their code, and ask questions. And I got to tell you, it's gone really well with the students I've done this with, and so now I'm releasing it to the public. If you want to know more, please use the contact link at either theautomationschool.com or theautomationblog.com. Now, another service I'm offering is the result of vendors and users coming to me and saying, Shawn, you got all that equipment in your studio. Could you test this for me? Or could you set up my computer and make sure it communicates to all those devices? And so I'm also offering PC configuration and application testing right here in my downtown office. So if you're interested in that, you can use the same 2 contact links to get in touch with me. And with that, that's all I have right now. Let's return to this week's episode of the Automation Podcast.
As you, and again, sorry for the listeners. This is a lot of visuals, but at the top there is the old tag browser, and down below is the new tag browser. The power behind the new tag browser is being able to now browse to things like Logic's extended tag properties, and also browse to the bit level at the end of the day. So for the listeners out there that don't know what Logic's tag extended properties are, it's basically if you browse to a tag in the controller, it's some additional meta information that's associated with it. So let's say I go to a Reels tag, I can specify like a minimum value, a maximum value, an engineering unit, and a description. And I can do all that configuration on that tag without having to go add additional tags in the controller, and that I can read back those values into the View application. And now, if you did this in the past with the old browser, you would be able to go search for the tag. But after you selected the tag, you would have to go manually add that syntax in to get to that information. You would have to go say .admin, .atmax, .addDescription, and maybe you're not very familiar with it. Then you would have to go to the help documentation and find out what the syntax is. In the new tag browser, it's easy. You just go expand the extended tag properties, go select it, double click, and you don't have to do any additional configuration. The same with the bit level access in the old tag browser. You can go select the dint, but after the fact, you would have to go add, I want to access .1, .2, .3. Here we can expand the bits folder, and you can go select it, and no additional configuration required for it. If you don't want those properties, you have the capability of hiding it in the interface. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. I think as old as the old tag browser was, I believe it went back to Panel Builder 32 and Panel Builder E and the same look and feel, But one of the things I did like is to be able to filter or search for a tag name. Like you just put in like a partial tag name like PID, and it would search through it. Does this maintain that filtering capability?
It does. So if you notice there on the right-hand side, we have that filter visible items. So depending on the level that you are, it will filter on that partial thing. So we haven't lost any capabilities going from the old one to the new.
And it looks very modern. It just looks more modern. Trying to be kind. Looks great.
All right. A quick one here. We've made some changes to our button styles. So this feature is command button enhancements. What you'll notice under the border style, you now have a new style called line, which allows you to create buttons that I'm showing here on the screen. You can go change the width. You can now specify a corner radius, which allows you to create a button that has some roundings to it, or exactly a full circle button, maybe some extensions. This just allows you to go create buttons that looks a lot more modern and gives you a lot more flexibility in the look and feel of it. In the past, if you wanted to do this, you might have had to do it with images layered on top of each other, and then use touch animation to hide and expose the different visuals of it.
Yeah, let me ask you a question here. So I don't think we could do circular buttons before, could we? Like, I mean, we could put touch animation on a circle, but when you say line though, what couldn't I do, like, let's say the square ones that are line styles, couldn't I do that with the old buttons, or what am I missing there?
No, you could do it with the old buttons. Just gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Just quicker. You don't have to change multiple things to get that look. You just choose line. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very
Great.
cool.
Right. The next one I want to spend some time on with you, and you might have a lot of questions for me on this one. But this is basically the feature that took center stage for this release. So this is a new Datalog Pro with edge historian capabilities built on Influx. So essentially what we did is we added a new data model to VueSC, which is the new Datalog Pro, which is an engine that collects and stores historical data in InfluxDB. So custom built for efficient management of time series data. If you think about how other historians store data, they might go to a relational database. This is specifically targeted at time series data and being able to do that a lot better. Simultaneously logs a substantial number of tags. Now, depending on how you do your configurations within the new Datalog Pro, if you set your time period to, let's say, 1 second or maybe 250 milliseconds, that tag values that you can do with it might vary. But if you keep everything at, let's say, 1 second, you can do about 50,000 tags simultaneously per second. So it's a lot of tags that you can log with this new Datalog Pro. It does support both periodic and event-driven logging. So just to let you know, you can see this is what the graphical user interface looks like. To the right, there's a little gear icon. That's probably the first thing that you'll do when you do the configuration. I'll click on the gear and it says, how long do you want to store the data? And I can either specify it in hours, days, months, or years. Once you've specified that, probably the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a group. And then you're going to go browse for all the tags that you want to be part of the group and add it into that specific group. Once you've done that, now you have the capability of either saying, well, do you want to log this periodically? Do you want to do it event-driven? And there's other one that's on demand. And there's some properties associated with that you can filter in there, something like deadband. But the nice thing about this, that's as quick and easy as the configuration is. You'll save it, and actually it will start logging the tags without you even having to issue a command to start.
Oh, nice.
So we do have commands to stop and start the services, but once you do it for the first time, you don't have to actually initiate it. It will just start logging.
I know some people out there saying, well, I could just do SQL Express. You can, but that is a relational database. It's not designed for time series data. And if you had a lot of data, it's not going to be very efficient. So this is welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the nice thing about this, it was designed for high performance data access because it's a time series database. And we can visualize log data seamlessly using our Trend Pro and data grid controls. But for those guys that do not want to use our Trend Pro and data grid controls, you can actually harness the power of third-party tools to retrieve, analyze, and generate these reports from the InfluxDB repository. The one example I'm going to do here is just use InfluxDB. You can go to the web portal, log in, and they have the capabilities of creating dashboards and trending. You can go build web pages with all that data that's connected to it. You publish it, and then you go to view and just web through a web browser control, and you can visualize it that way. So you can use other third-party tools to do with the data what you want to do it, and just bring it back to VueSC at the end of the day. Now, there are usually a very couple of frequently asked questions. I'm going to direct people to our knowledge base. We actually have a whole document set up about FAQs, but the ones I want to address here is, okay, so where does InfluxDB get installed? So InfluxDB gets installed on your HMI server for version 14. You don't have to do any configuration. It's done automatically for you. Once you start your Datalog Pro configuration, it just works. The other question that we get then is, okay, well, do you support redundancy? Yes, we support redundancy. If you've got a primary HMI server and a secondary HMI server, it gets installed on the HMI server, and they just communicate with each other. So how does it work? Primary server and secondary server is online. Both log at the same time. Primary goes down, secondary just keeps on logging. Primary comes back online. It synchronizes the data back to the primary. And the same way around, if secondary goes down, it just keeps on logging on the primary. Secondary comes online, just synchronizes the
It's just
data
all
over.
automatic. You don't have to
Just
do anything.
all, don't have to do anything.
Nice.
Then the last question is, well, can I connect this to an external InfluxDB database? For version 14, the answer is no. We only support the local database. In the upcoming release, v15, we will support the external connection to an external Influx database.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, that's great, and it's good. You know, I can see the first rev just supporting local, but yeah, no, that's going to be great, especially when you add remote. I'm sure people want to put some stuff on in a database on a server somewhere, and then use their tools to access it. So very cool.
Yeah, we're very excited about this feature. Right. The next one is FactoryTalk View Studio HMI component filtering. So for those listeners and users out there that are very familiar with large projects, sometimes finding the displays is a hassle because you need to filter through 500 displays and try and figure out which display you want to bring up for edits. So what we've now done is giving you a filter capability. So the filter capability is now start with or contains. And my example that I'm showing here, I basically said I want all my displays that contains the term PMTR. You can see it's filtered out there. I can just open it up to my edits, and once I'm done, close it, and I can remove the filter. So where does the filter apply? It will be on displays and global objects, parameters, computer and groups, network and devices, and users and groups. Sorry, I think I said that before. It was computer and groups and users and groups.
So you access it through the little funnel there on the side of displays?
Pardon me?
How do you pull this up? You click on that little funnel symbol?
Yeah, on the little funnel symbol that you have there, a filter.
Okay. Nice.
Right. Sorry. Moving on to another theme, which is basically feedback-driven enhancements. This one is this feature is called exclude tag scanning for invisible objects. Some of our users has basically come to us and say, well, sometimes they need to design displays, but the tags aren't currently in the controller. So when they try and pull it up, they will either get wireframes or they will get errors logged to the diagnostics logger, which they don't want. But they know that those tags are going to exist in another update, but they want to do the work up front. So what we've done here now is giving you the ability to add content which is referencing tags that are not in the controller. But if you set that object or object to hidden or invisible, and you check that box to say exclude reference tags from scanning when the object is invisible, then it will actually not generate wireframes and it won't generate any errors into your diagnostics log.
This checkbox is under options?
Yeah, if you go to options under settings, you'll see there's a new checkbox which says exclude reference tags from scanning when objects is invisible.
And invisible is a property I can change in the property panel for that object? We're not talking...
Correct.
Okay, good.
Correct. Moving on to mobility. So this is all about features that are currently supported within FactoryTalk View SE, which has not been ported over to Viewpoint. So for our Viewpoint users out there, the couple of features here are all related to that. So now we have the ability to support step line trending in FactoryTalk Viewpoint. So it wasn't supported in the previous releases, but you should be able to get that now with v14. Moving on to the next one is the same for FactoryTalk Viewpoints, being able to support data grid time range filtering. So now if you bring up Viewpoint and you want to filter on a time range, you have that capability.
Yeah.
And the last one here for Viewpoint, I think for those Viewpoint users are regular users, this administration console would look a lot less familiar to you. So we did a refresh on our FactoryTalk administration console. For those that are familiar with other projects within Rockwell, things like FactoryTalk Hub, FactoryTalk Vault, and those type of things, we're trying to standardize our web content to look and feel exactly the same way. So if you go to those type of web pages, you'll notice that the Viewpoint administration console looks a lot like it. So we haven't functionally changed anything. It's just a refresh on the look and feel. This one I want to spend a little bit of time on as well. I'm not sure how many of our listeners out there are actually aware of the system status portal. But in general, the feedback, people are not aware of it. So I would like to spend some time here. So the system status portal is a web page that basically shows you the overall health of your system. So this was introduced in FactoryTalk Services version 6.3 and 6.3.1, where they create this system status portal, which will actually go and look at your health for things like HMI server, data servers, and FactoryTalk Alum and event servers. Then v14, what we've introduced was to expand the coverage to cover FactoryTalk View SE client connections and being able to see your FactoryTalk historian SE server status. And then a couple of things that we've added as well. If you do have your Alum and events configured, if you click on your data server or your Alum and event server, it'll take you to a dashboard where there's some additional dashboarding done for you on that. What type of information do you get using the system status portal? Each server will show if it's currently loading a project, if it's in a running state, or if it's in a failed state. If you have all your servers configured to be in a redundant mode, it will show which one is in active state and in a standby. The nice thing about the system status portal is you don't have to do any configuration on this. It's out of the box. You don't have to go create displays to show this information. The system status portal is not installed on all machines. It's usually installed on one server, and the recommendation is usually goes installed on your FactoryTalk directory. Your clients, you'll just connect through a web browser to that server, and you'll get that information. The nice thing to the right bottom image, you'll see a list of the clients that are currently connected to your HMI server. It will show if it's an active server client currently connected. It will show previous ones, what time did they start the connection, what time did it end. So there's a lot of information there that you could potentially use to see exactly how your operators were utilizing their clients at that point in time. All right. I spoke a little bit about this in the previous slide, but this is just your alarm dashboards. Again, this is an out-of-the-box experience. So if you go click on either your data server where you can configure alarms or your alarm and event server, it will bring up another web page for you. But on that web page, it's basically at the top, you'll see a summary of real-time alarms. That will show you how many alarms you currently have in alarm, how many is unacknowledged, do you have any, how many is disabled, suppressed, and shelved. That type of information will be visible to you. And then we've created some dashboard to say, okay, what's the most frequent alarms that you got in your system, alarm frequency by priority or severity, priority distribution, and alarm duration. And you can also go specify the duration if you want to get the information from these dashboards.
I think that's the biggest one right there. I mean, not everybody has a redundancy system, But this, I think you could use on any View SE system. Is if you have somebody who needs to see the alarms only, they don't even need a client license. They can just have this a shortcut to this
Correct.
page here and see if there's any alarms. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and the nice thing about, like I said, is out of the box, no configuration required.
Yeah.
And maybe just to go back to the redundant comment, I mean, it doesn't have to be a redundant system, right? It will do this for a simplex system as well. The health indicators.
Yeah, even if it's a standalone, right? This would still work.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So this is a bonus for everybody, not just a lot of times when you're doing the other status, you want to see is the primary running, is the secondary running. You're concerned about how many clients are connected. Maybe somebody calls in and hey, my terminal's not working. But this, being able to see a dashboard of alarms, I can just say with no configuration, I can see that being super helpful.
Right. Moving on to the next theme, which is alarms and events. We've spoken about this a little bit previously, but in the L8 series controllers, they introduced a thing called logic tag-based alarms. And for those that are not aware, basically it's going to a tag, right-click on it, say I want to make this an alarm, comes up with a configuration dialog box. You could go configure your messages, which alarm groups is in there. Do you want to enable, acknowledge, reset commands? You could do then everything by just right-click on a tag, doing the configuration, and then just automatically subscribes to the alarm and event summary banner, right? Now, part of that capability is being able to configure your alarm message. And one of the capabilities was actually going to those extended tag properties that we spoke about earlier in the call, and then basically add it into your message. And now one of the other nice things about extended tag properties, which I did not mention, is you can actually go translate that in the controller to different languages. And if you switch it on the HMI language, it will automatically pick up that language and switch it into your message. Now, the HMI server-based alarms does not have this capability in the previous releases, so we wanted to make sure we synchronize the capabilities. So now if you go to your HMI server-based alarms, you can actually go create these messages and add these variables for logic tag, extended tag properties, which assists with language switching at the end of the day. So this is sort of just a synchronization between what the configurations are available in the controller and the configurations that are available in HMI server-based alarms. So the next feature here is alarm and event summary live data values. So people have requested us to add another column to our summary banner where they can actually see the live data coming from the PLC. So currently, if you look at the configurations, there's a trigger value, and it doesn't follow the live data. So now with this new column, you can actually go see, okay, there's my alarm. I had a trigger value of 41, but my current system variable in the controller is 44. So you can see what the comparison or the current status in the controller is directly from your alarm and event summary banner, or just normal banner. All right, moving to the next one is additional alarm and events built-in functions. So probably for the more advanced users with FT View, you know that there's alarm and events functions available that you can use so that you can animate objects on your displays. There was a request to add another alarm and events function, which we call alarm and events active unacknowledged alarm. So you can go do some animations on those properties. The one I really want to talk about here is the alarm and events history status server name. So for those that are aware, when you set up HMI server-based alarms or your logic tag-based alarms, if you go to the alarm and event sum property to set it up, there's a function called enable alarm history. So a lot of times that database gets disconnected for some reason, and nobody knows that it's disconnected. Now with this functionality, you can actually go look at the status and see what my current status of my connection is to that historian database. And you can even create an alarm. So once you lose connection to that alarm database, then put that alarm in there so you know you're not logging the history for all your alarms. And we're getting here to the end of the presentation. So ME transfer utility enhancements. So we just made some enhancements to the transfer utility to be able to pick up the awesome 6300 IPC, allowing you for remote deployment of ME runtime project files directly to that computer. So previously it would not pick that PC up, but now it's part of the tool, and you can download your project to that computer.
Does it have to have the ME runtime software installed on it for it to show up here?
No.
Like, is it just it's just a generic IPC?
It's just a generic. It's like any devices you pick up on the network. It doesn't have to have the software installed.
Yeah, but you still can transfer the runtime file to it. That's cool.
Yeah. The last one, just talking about what operating systems and Microsoft SQL we support. We've added Windows Server 2022 and Windows 11 to our software packages, and as well as Microsoft SQL 2022.
Now, is this list we're looking at here? Is this the changes for 14?
This is for 14, correct? Yes.
So Windows 10 32-bit. Not that I know anybody using that, but I think it says, is that what's on the side? There's the version that last supported it, or like it says Windows 10 32-bit 12. Is that when it stopped being supported?
Correct. Yes.
So Windows 7 was 12 was the last version for that. Vista version 8.
Again, you should be able to get this information if you go to our product compatibility and download center and go to the product, and it should show up which version, which operating systems and SQL is supported.
Yeah, I was just in there last night. You can put like several packages in there. You can put Studio 5000 and FactoryTalk View and all that, and it'll show you all that stuff.
Yeah, and we've reached the end of the features for View 14. I hope some features stood out, and people are going to be excited to use FactoryTalk View, or at least investigate migrating to it.
I'll tell you, the first 3 slides with the graphic updates, right? I mean, the multi-monitor stuff is huge, but really the first 3 slides you had with the graphic updates, I mean, that's huge because, I mean, we just see through the entire presentation that, you get some TLC to the product. I mean, we've been getting things like Trend Pro and different things like that over time, but now, even the tag browser's been updated. So it's good to see that the company's investing money into this, because a lot of people have this product installed out there. I'm a big fan of it, been using it since it came out. And it really just reassures those of us who have used it, or those of the listeners who have it installed out there, that Rockwell is taking care of this product. It is being updated and modernized, and that's super cool. I'm really curious what's coming in 15. Is that something that is going to be coming out, you think, in the automation fair time, or is that maybe a year out? What's the thoughts on 15 now?
So obviously things can change, but current release date is targeted with Studio 5000 Logic Designer. I think was it V37.
Okay.
But we're tied to their release date, and that's targeted for the end of September 2024.
Okay. So so it should be out by automation fair, even if there's a little slippage.
Correct.
Is there a reason it's tied to that? Is it just the FactoryTalk Alum and Events piece and FactoryTalk Links piece that's shared?
Uh,
Or is there some other...
the shared components is FactoryTalk Service Platform
Okay, yeah.
and the FactoryTalk directory and things like that, right? And obviously FactoryTalk Alum events. So it's just the shared components between products.
So that's why they're synchronizing the releases again. I know we used to have the coordinated service release. What do they call it? CPR, coordinated product releases, and then that got kind of a little crazy.
Right.
Yeah, well, I would love to have you back, Johann, to talk about 15 when it comes out. This was a good update. I did not have a chance to, when this came out in the winter, I did not have a chance, and I was at Automation Fair, but I did not have a chance to go through these slides and see what was new. So very, very cool. Really appreciate you coming on and updating myself and the audience. And just really want to thank you for your time this afternoon.
Oh, I thank you for your time and for inviting me to talk about it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank our members who, with their monthly subscription for $10 a month, make these episodes possible. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, I'd like to ask that you please give us a like, a sub, and a share. And if you know anybody who needs to learn PLC's HMI or SCADA, including FactoryTalk View, please mention my online courses over at theautomationschool.com. With that, I hope you all have a great week ahead. I want to wish you good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.